All right, welcome back everybody to Minchas Chinuch at Schwartz on Thursday nights at 8 o'clock. And as always, we open the shir by thanking TorahAnytime.com for recording, uploading, and making these shirim available to a wider public. We want to dedicate the schus of tonight's Limud Torah to Refuah Shalema of Rav Yoshev and Rav Belsky, Yosef Shalom and Chaim Musha, and Chaim Yisrael ben Chanatzirel. Okay, so we have a double parsha this week, Tazria Metzora. So I want to do something of the many mitzvahs that the minor mitzvahs count regarding Tazria Metzora. I want to do something about the karbanis that aid in the tahara of the Metzora. So we're doing mitzvah kuf ayin vav, mitzvahs karban Metzora kashis rapa mitzorate. Okay, so it's an obscure part of the Torah. It's a mitzvah where you see the fusion of Seder Kodshim and Seder Taharis. And the mitzvah that we're going to be learning tonight, the Rambam brings it in Sefer Karbanis. It's called Mechutzrei Kapara. So let's see how the Chinuch first describes a little bit what a Mechutzrei Kapara. There are two things that are unique actually about this carbon that the Metzora has to bring. Number one is that it's one of the 4 Mechutzrei Kapara in the Torah, and number 2, it's one of the 7 carbon oil of Yared. Okay, so let's start with a Chinuch. Mitzvahs carbon Metzora k'shizab mitzorate. Sheyakriv kol Metzora carbon k'shirapa mechulya. He's calling it a disease. It is a disease, saras. It may be Kamavur and the Ramban and other Rishonim, maybe a supernatural disease, but it's definitely a disease. So it requires a refuah, and when there's a refuah, and that's all kinds of complicated halachas. We know Nagayim is a catch-all word that covers a lot of ground, a lot of territory. There's a nesek, and there's a yarakrak, and a damdam, and karachta, and gabata. There's all different kinds of tzaras, and all different kinds of maras of tzavas, and a mikveh, and a michya, and a zayvaita. But whatever the nega is that causes the tameh to acquire in Gidrei Halacha Shem Metzora, so when he has a refuah from that, is a mitzvah for him to bring karbanos. What are the karbanos? 3 behemoths. Achas la'oila, v'achas l'chatas, v'achas la'oshim. And besides those 3 behemoths, there's a loig shemen he has to bring. A certain liquid volume of oil. Parenthetically, we're going to see in the Minchas Chinuch that some of these karbanos also have nesachim that come with them. And also, don't be confused by the fact that he says shalosh behemoths b'chad the biksa. 2 of them are male and 1 of them are female. The chatas has to be a kizbah. V'muani keves echad la'asham, then 1 keves for the asham. V'yisar and silas, v'loig shemen u'shtei sayr meshnei b'nei yaina. Then he can bring for the chatas and the oila. Then he can bring tayrim or b'nei yaina. Echad achatas v'echad oila. Shenamra. Okay, but before we get to the shenamra, that's the makar for the whole mitzvah. But this is where it's a carbon oil of Yared. Depending on your economic strata, you either bring 3 behemoths or you bring 1 behemoth and 2 birds. Obviously, birds are more affordable. Okay. How do I know there is such a mitzvah? Shnamar uvayam hashmini yikach shnei kvasim tamimim v'kiv sachas because of a parsha achazu v'imdalhu. Okay, so from the first pasuk we know that there's a mitzvah for him to bring these karbanos. And from the second pasuk, we know that it's an oil of Yared. Then dalu, if he's poor, then the animals that are brought for the karbanos change. V'zeh Metzora nikra mechusar kapara achi yakrav akarban. So a Metzora who's holding already after the first stages of his tahara, with the 8 eras, the shni salas, and the shtei tziparim chayas, and so on and so forth. But he still has to bring these karbanos. Such a person is called a mechusar kapara. V'arba mechusar kapara hen zeh shamarnu the Metzora v'zav v'yeladas. The Indian shenikru mechusar kapara. What's this halacha together of mechusar kapara? Hu loymar shekol echad mehem afal b'shetiyah metumasai v'toval v'heri of shimshai b'yayim hashvi Adayin uchasa kapara zu. V'niyochel lechel b'kodshim at sheyakivenu. It says biyam. It should be biyam hashmini. Okay, so there's two categories of people who are most of the way there in the tahara process, but they're not quite there. There's something called a tful yaim. There are a lot of different kinds of tmeim that the remedy for that tumah is tefillah b'mikveh. But even with tefillah b'mikveh, you need harav shemesh, you need for the sun to go down the day after you went to the mikveh. Such a person is called a tful yaim until the sun goes down. These mechusar kapara, besides the fact that they've got to go to the mikveh and the sun has to go down on them, on the following day, they've got to bring karbanos. Okay? Now, the Chinuch says a lashon over here, and I'm not 100% sure how to be magda this. It says at the end, yeah, he's not able to eat in kachim. He's not able to eat kachim. Why isn't he allowed to eat kachim? Why can't the Metzora, before he brings, while he's a mechutz kapar, before he brings these three karbanos, b'yam hashmini, why can't he eat kachim? He's still tameh, right? Wouldn't you say that he's still tameh? Okay, so then what's the lashon? Afal pi shatia metumase, v'tal v'herav shimshe. What does it mean when he says it's tia metumase?
Guess got kaddish on his stomach. In other words, truma will be our eat
I don't know. Interesting question. You mean if the Metzora is a kohen who's allowed to eat truma, could he eat kachar gvul? Yeah. What do you want to ask?
Means that he no longer the kohen called him a tahor, because the kohen said tame.
Right.
It goes back to the kohen yamashmini,
right.
And then the kohen says tahor.
Is there a pronouncement for tahor? No, there has to be a pronouncement for tuma. I don't think the kohen's diburim in the tahor process are ma'alo ma'arit. I don't think there is such a thing. He's got it. The tam has to. The kohen is the one who has to look at the nega and declare a tameh. But I don't know that it's true the other way around.
No, he has to clear him.
What?
I'm pretty sure a kohen has to clear him.
The kohen has to say in his rapid, but there's an amira that he's got to say to call them tahor, or say that the nega is no longer a nega.
I'm not saying that the saying of tahor functions as an actual function.
Right.
I'm saying that tihar b'tumasa means that he has been free from his nega.
Okay, let me rephrase the question just to bring it to a sharper focus. What I'm getting at over here. A Metzora, if we don't know the halacha that well, we certainly know the hamaladics. We know all the musas for him about lashon hara. How many machnas does a Metzora have to leave when he's a muchlet, when he's a real Metzora? All three, right? There's three machnas. There's machna shechina, machna levia, machna Yisrael. That was in the midbar. The parallels to that in Yerushalayim were inside the Azara is called machna shechina. Inside the Rabbi it has the din of Machna Levia, and inside the Chaimis Yerushalayim has the din of Machna Yisrael. So Metzora, Bizman Beis HaMikdash, had to be outside of Yerushalayim. Okay? Is he bringing, when he's going to the mikveh, and when he's getting to bring his karbanis, is he inside of Yerushalayim or is he outside of Yerushalayim? I'm bringing you two symptoms of Tumah. You can't eat kachim, and there are certain places you're not allowed to access, you're not allowed to walk into. Can he be in Yerushalayim? Yeah. Before he's a Mechutz Kapar. Okay. So what I'm trying to bring out, without you're supposed to be medayik in Rishonim. You have to know Gnai what the Chinuch is referring to. But suffice to say like this: you find such zachen in halach here. I'll give you an example in a body of law that has absolutely nothing to do with what we're learning now, but just for illustrative purposes. A person is makadosh an issue. We're not masada kedushin and kol mishen baki b'tiv git v'kedushin lo yesek imam. But we've all been to hundreds, some of us thousands of Orthodox weddings in our time. Right? We know there's two things: chuppah v'kedushin. Two bazundera kinyanim. It's in the bracha. Yeah. Also lanu as haruses v'hita lanu as an asuas lanu. Right? Two different kinyanim. The kedushin asks the woman akula al makahegdush. The rest of the world, anyone other than her husband. But what's actually matter her to the husband, that's Nesuin. It's a two-step process. Chalila, somebody has to be Megarish, you should say. A marriage ends in divorce. Do you need two kinyanim to undo the two kinyanim to start a Kedushin? No. Right? So you see that there are things in halacha, depending on the direction that you're going. Sometimes it's a two-step process, and sometimes it happens in one shot, so to speak. One shot. You have a get. The get undoes whatever kinyanim were involved in both the nesuin and the kedushin. They're both undone by the ma'aseh get. Okay. In tumah, or at least in certain forms of tumah, it works the other way around. Right? Becoming tameh is a one-step process. Tahara, that might be piecemeal. Truth of the matter is that when it comes to a Metzora, even becoming tameh is a multi-step process. Right? Because there's the Yemei Hezger that's being declared a muchlat. The different stages. Well, what all I'm trying to point out over here is it's a relative term. When he says afal pi shatir mitumasai, well, he's not completely tar. If he was completely tar, then he wouldn't be a mechuser kapara. Mechuser kapara doesn't just mean you mechuser in bringing karbanis that are mutal on you, like an idol regal has to bring karbanis. Yeah, so Metzora has to bring karbanis too. That might be one din in this mitzvah, but there's another din. It's part and parcel of the tahara process. If we understand the complete tahar to be somebody who can come to Machne Shechina, who can stand inside the Azara of the Beis HaMikdash, and somebody who can eat koshin, yeah, then it's not precise, it's not 100% accurate to say that he was already Tiyah Metumasai until he brings karbanis. It's a piecemeal thing. Yeah, the earliest stages, the Teglachas of Shlishi V'Shri that did something, the Eitz Eres of Shni Salas and the Tziparim Chaim that did something to lift the tumah that he incurred out being a Metzora, but there's still something missing. Hence the word mechutzer. Okay, I'm not asking any bin kasha. I'm just trying to get a focus, in the lashon of the Chinuch. Okay, fine. So just to have clarity in that.
In other words, if he's going to eat kaddish, he'll be over of eating kaddish and the tumah.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Misa, whatever.
Yeah, it's Misa. I think I don't remember if it's a chorus or Misa B'Nei Shemayim. Yeah, and it'll still be. We're going to see the whole ingenuity, shall we say? How does a person who's also to come into Machne Shechina, and there's a din of karbanos to take of l'smicha shrita, right? How do we get around that? How does a tamei do smicha? Every baal must do smicha in his karbanos. How does the Metzora get around it? Okay, so we'll see in a few minutes. All right. So that's an interessante Sache. I want to see the Lashon first in the Chinuch. Now,
what does the pasuk say? Shnei kvasim?
What?
The pasuk itself says, "Yikach shnei kvasim tamimim v'kivsa apos."
Yeah,
It says shloshit kvasim.
he get because the chatas always has to be a female. One of these three karbanos is a chatas, except for a nasi. Whenever a hedyot brings a chatas, it's got to be in the keva. I don't know what would be the din if a nasi or if a melech became a Metzora. When he does a chatas for a chat for karas b'shaygig, so then there's a special din of a sir nasi. I'm wondering if there'd be a special chatas for a kain gadol or for a melech or for a nasi v'shevet who became a Metzora. I don't know the answer to that. Okay. Now, another thing I want to do that we usually don't do, I'm not getting into the philosophy, the Tamei mitzvahs of the Chinuch, but we always, I often say this in this year, that, it's almost like the Chinuch is a pretext, not a text for the Minchas Chinuch. You had a London should say it the right, they decide to throw it up around the Chinuch. But Chinuch is first and foremost from the Minei mitzvahs, and we know that there are all kinds of machlokes in the Rishonim. He's not the only one who wrote a Sefer on mitzvahs. The Rambam wrote, the Ramban wrote, a Smag, a lot of different svarim that are called the Minei mitzvahs. So he just points out an interesting thing over here in exactly numbering and getting the count of this mitzvah, or maybe it's mitzvahs. I don't know. It's different karbanos, different behemoths, different mechusrei kapara. How do you count it? Vayiksha alecha. Nobody should ask a question. Lama ein mein in carbon kol echad ma'ar be'elu mitzvah achas. V'lai nichlu kulan b'mitzvah achas. Shenever sheyakrivu haba mechusrei kapara carbon. V'akach yu mechaper. Right? It's going to come out, right, when he'll get to the parsha of Zav. He'll talk about the carbon that a Zav has to bring. When he gets to the parsha of Zava, he's going to count that for a mitzvah. When he gets to Yoledis, he'll count that for a mitzvah. Why do you say there's one mitzvah of the Torah that the mechusrei kapara should bring their karbanis in order to achieve their Torah? Mechatais, should be counted as 4 separate mitzvahs in the minyan of Tayag. Kamai, you have a precedent for this. Kamai shanu ayman b'taras mei mikveh sheyitzvah kol tomei v'ach achiyata. Yeah? For those tameim that don't require karbanis as part of their tahara process, who only need mikveh and harif shemesh, so there's no separate. We don't say that a nida is one mitzvah and a balkari is another mitzvah and another tameim that can become tar with the tefillah b'mikveh. There's a separate mitzvah. There's one mitzvah in the Torah b'mikveh, and it only gets counted as one in the minyan taryag. So why do these get counted as 4 separate mitzvahs? We don't when it comes to those who need tahara b'mikveh, and a lot of different types of tameim that do. We don't count each one's tefillah b'mikveh as a separate mitzvah, and yet the korbanos of the 4 different kinds of mechusei kapara we do count as 4 separate mitzvahs. The answer is, the Indian is, that in these 4 mechusei kapara, it's not a one size fits all thing. Yeah? If you see a mikveh has a kayach tahara, okay, the mitzvah of the Torah, build a mikveh that can be matahar tameim, right? But if each mechusei kapara has a different prescription, the exact mix of what kind of karbanis he or she have to bring, so that indicates that they're individual self-standing mitzvahs. The nimtzah she'adav she'yashlim kapara shal echad mehem lo yashlim kapara ha'acher. Something that could work to finish the kapara / the tahara of the Metzora isn't going to work for the zav or for the yeladas. V'lochein yimnu kol echad mitzvah. That's why each one gets counted as its own separate mitzvah. Masha'en kein b'mei mikveh shatara shavu bakol. Every mikveh is the same thing. Has to be arba'im sa. You don't say a balkari. Actually, balkari might be able to be taifel imayim shuvim. Whatever, any tamim midaraisa, yeah, that the tahara comes from a mikveh. You're not going to say this one needs this kind of a mikveh and that one needs that kind of a mikveh, a different kind of mayan. It's a one size fits all tahara. Mashain came b'mei mikveh shatar shal bakol came to it's a Rambam Zechron Levracha. This is what the Rambam says, a klal in counting mitzvahs, and at least in this case, the Chinuch is going with the sheet of the Rambam, that the arba mechutzri kapara, so their karbanos get counted as separate mitzvahs. Mashain came the tahara of the diverse tameim, whose tahara comes from the mikveh alone, that gets counted as one mitzvah. Okay, let's take a look now a little bit in the Minchas Chinuch. We'll do some halachas. I'm not going to be able to do everything, but just to get some of the more interessant inyanim here. Okay, let's start with Aleph, top right hand column. Sheyakuk tzar shalosh behemis. Hainu kivsa lechatis. The female, the kivsa has to go for a chatis. V'kevas echad lo'el, v'kevas echad lo'asham. Kamavur b'tayra v'ramam perek alf m'mechutz v'kapar loch gimel. V'da, here's something very interesting. The mavur b'shas diyum perek shnei sirei, samach beis on beis. The hashnei kvasim, the hainu ha'oila v'asham, not the chatis, but the oil and the asham tzrich m'shi yushavim b'mara uv'kaima uv'damim u'lekichasim ke'echad. Sound familiar? Anyone know what this din would be doing in Masechtas Yuma? Yes, sure. What is it? What's it doing in Masechtas Yuma? Right. Shnei Sira Yom Kippurim. Well, one goes LaShem and one goes LaZazel. That's the famous Mishnah that the Shnei Sira LaZazel have to be shavim b'mar v'kaim v'damim, and you have to buy them at the same time. They have to look the same. They have to be the same height. You're not going to get one mottled and one solid color. They should look as much as possible like twins. They should look like twins. Yeah, Zok there that it says in the Gemara over there that the same thing applies for 2 out of the 3 kvasim, not siirim, but the kvasim that a Metzora has to bring for his tahara, for his kapara. Over the Eved, ksherim af she'enim shavim, but the Eved they're kosher anyway. K'maisira Yom Kippurim v'tzipari Metzora. Same thing, l'maisa, it's only l'chatchila, but the Eved it's even true. But Shnei Sira Yom Kippurim, one could be black and one could be white. But the Eved, Rambam is all hishmitzeh. The Rambam leaves out this whole thing. Okay, so before I read on, would anyone try to hazard a svara to be masber the Rambam? What's the chiluk between the Shnei Sira Yom Kippurim? That at least l'chatchila they have to be shavim b'mar b'kayim uv'damim, but these 2 out of the 3 kvasim of the Metzora don't have to be shav. At least, how he's chaylach on a Gemara, I don't know if it's a Gemara or a Bryce or a Mishnah, But l'maisa, the Rambam is mashmit this halach. It's mashmit that he doesn't even require it l'chatchila. Why should there be a chiluk? Can anyone offer any svaras? Why should it be chiluk?
Because I think before they made the gyro,
Right.
so both of them were roy to be either one of them.
Right.
So maybe that's why I feel they have to be the same, because they were both designated basically to do the same thing.
Right.
It's only the girdle that separates them.
I was going to say that svara too. There's a big difference between the kedusha of being magdish, I should say, the Shnei Sirei Yom Kippurim compared to all of the karbanos in the Torah. Shnei Sirei Yom Kippurim is basically, so to speak, we don't believe in games of chance. Well, by us, a lottery is not a game of chance. It's Ashgacha Pratis. When the Kohen is Tarif B'Kalfi and he thrusts his hands in the Kalfi and it comes out with the two Piskais, one says Lashem and one says Lazazel. Kaviyachal, so to speak, the Eibishter is picking and is being magdish one to be a carbon, one to go Lazazel. Right? So you can hear, at least I could hear a svara, that you don't want. We know human beings are ornery. There's a issue of Tmur in the truth. Lo yachifenu lo yamar Isai taiv barav or taiv. Yeah, people are superstitious. They want the one on the yamin to come out la Hashem. It's supposed to be a simon taiv, right? So if the animals are diverse, if they look different, maybe there'll be some kind of a manipulation. And the kalfi, maybe you'll want to cook the book, so to speak, to get the girl to come out a certain way. But over here, I'm being makdish b'peh anyway. I get to choose the animals. Yeah, it's my akdasha, it's my damim. I got to buy them. I've got to be makdishim. What's the nafkamina that? Okay, that's number one. I was thinking of another svar is that because over here it's not two, you've got three, and the three automatically has to be probably more different than a difference in color or a different in height. It's a different gender. It's got to be in a cave. The chad has to be in a cave anyway. Yeah, and then I don't know exactly how he's being magded a loig shemen. It sounds like the loig shemen is its own carbon too. We're going to see if time allows. We're going to see that the shirayim of the loig shemen are not allowed to be eaten, be consumed, drunk, eaten, however you deal with the loig shemen, until the hazayas are done kedas u'kedin. Just like a carbon cannot be eaten, the edible parts of a carbon, until the hazayas of the dam on the mizbeach are done properly, right? So already you have diverse carbonates. You're not going to get uniformity. Yeah, one thing's a loig shemen. These are animals. Among the animals, these are scharim. These are nekavis. Maybe. After does the Ram gemeint. Lamaisa. Let's read on over here. V'ayim mishal mel sham perikid mishkagas halach gimel shetama al shmas Ramazal. Then why the Ram was mashmit, and in the Hagayos on the bottom, he says that the Ram is chaylik, and he was being saimach. With Chazal, there's a machlokes in the Mishnayos. There's a Mishnah in Perek Yudal Negayim, Mishnah Hey, that it's not required. The Shivyam b'marav v'kayim. Okay, let's skip down to Eis Gimel. Umashikosa Rav Mechaber Achas Oila v'Achas L'Hosham v'Achas Chada. The Chatas v'Hosham Shal Metzora Meshunim Mikol Chatayis v'Hasham Meshabatayra. They're different. Shekulam and Etzrichim Nesachim. When you bring a Chatas, when you bring an Hosham, it's without Nesachim. Rachatasa v'Hasham Shal Metzora Tu'unin Nesachim Kamai Kol Kavis. Every Kavis in the Torah has a prescribed volume for the flour that you bring and for the wine that you bring. Hainu Yisar and Silas Baal B'Rviyas Ayin Shemen V'Yayin L'Nesach Rviyas Ayin. I'm Ram Perek Beis Ma'aseh Karbanos Halacha Beis Uvav. Okay, I'm saying a Baich Svar here, but I'm going to allow myself the luxury of saying this Baich Svar anyway. Why is it different? Or do you want to forward an idea, perhaps why it's different? Because again, we have for the Mechusrei Kapara, for the Tmeim who bring Karbanos, right? So we have in the Panim of Torah that's called Rish, Hamaletics we call it in English, we have a Mahalach for why these particular Karbanos have to be brought. Yeah, by the oldest, it's the most famous one that she broke a shvua, right? When she was when she was going through her intense labor pains, she made a shvua that she would never be nizkak l'bayla again, and of course she's going to break that shvua. So that's an avera. So Mamela, she has to bring a carbon to be mechaper on that avera, right? But strictly speaking, the Metzora, Vadi did an avera. We know Nagayim come for lashon hara, for gas haruach. They come for different things, Nagayim. Yeah, but one would think the kapara for the avera is the Nagayim themselves. Yeah, the carbon is a part of the tahara process. So yes, they're not really coming for a chait per se. Yeah, a carbon that's coming for a chait should be simple, should be unadorned. Yeah, we find this by the Minchas Saita, the Minchas Knayas of the Saita. It says lo yitan alei levina, lo yitan shaman, right? And then it's a Michael Behema, the carbon of the Saita. Right, so Kenacheren, that other Chatayis and Hashamayis that are coming Takatu Mechaper on Averis, coming to Mechaper on Averis, you don't bring a Nesach. And Minchas Nesachim. But this is that's coming for a Tahara process, so it's not really a Maskeras oven. So you can bring it with all the pitch because you bring for any other kevis. Efshe, shkam zogim. Okay, say the Taraseh. Ois dalad. Void Hashem l'chaktzas dinim amavorm b'Rambam perek dal perek ein mechutz kapara. Bring you some more dinim. HaMetzora im lagilach teglachas shniya b'yom hashvi. Are you supposed to have his first teglachas, and that's when he brings the eitzeres and the levina and the shtei tzipurim chayim. That's the first step in his tahara process. Then he's supposed to wait another 7 days, and then he's supposed to have another teglachas. It'll probably be instructive. Let me read a little bit the halachas from the Rambam. He's going to be paraphrasing it, Kasayda, the Minchas Chinuch, so let me just read you Kilashana. This is, the Rambam is in Hilchas Mechusrei Kapara, Perek Gimel, Perek Dalad, starting from the first halacha. Kashiyisrapa tzuru mitzaratei, Achar shemitar inoisei be'etz eres ve'ezev v'shnis elas u'shtei tziparim u'megalchen eschol b'sarei u'matbil inoisei. Yeah? Achar kol zois yikonis l'Yerushalayim. So you see, it's a piecemeal process, right? It's called mitar inoisei. It is a tahara. The complete tahara is not going to be till the karbanos are brought. There's also a tahara. Yeah? So you can come into Yerushalayim, right? So Meshulach Megimel Machnas he isn't anymore. After the Eitz Eres and Shnitei Elas and the Shtei Tziparim and the Giluach, the first Giluach, he can already walk into Machna Yisrael. Yeah? Achakol Zois he comes to Yerushalayim, Umayne Shivas Yamim, Uvayam Yishri Megalech Teglach Shnia, Kit Teglachas Rishayna, meaning a whole body shave, V'tayvel, and he goes to the mikveh, Arei Tful Yom, Umar Shimshei is a Tful Yom, he still needs a Hari of Shemesh for another step of Tahara. On the 8th day, he has to go to the mikveh again. It seems redundant. He went to the mikveh yesterday. He had Har Shemesh. What does he have to go to the mikveh again for? The Rambam asked the question. He was completely tameh. He was handling Schwartz. He was dealing with tumah the whole time. Then in Nizam, Mishum Tumah, he's not careful to become Nistam with any kind of Tumah because he's already the worst kind of Tumah that can be. What the Ma'ali now, if I'll become a Tamim Meis or if I'll touch Shrotzim, what difference does it make? V'shema Nitma Akish Shatavo, maybe he got Tameh again after the Tefillah yesterday. Lefichach Tav B'Shri Be'ezras HaNashim, Be'lishkas HaMetzeram, there was a Lishka in the Ezras Nashim called the Metzeram, this is already on the Har Bayis, so it's another step. He's in Machna Leviyah now, right? Yeah. Okay. So now let's go back to the Lashon of Minchas Chinuch. Hamitzarim lagilach, 2 lines in the bottom on the right hand column. Hamitzarim lagilach teglach shniya b'yom hashvi ad zman ravach teglach rishayna. Okay, so 7 is the minimum. He's got to wait 7 days after the first teglachas if he wants to on the 8th day bring his karbanis and finish his kapara and not be a mechusar kapara anymore. But it's optional. If he wants to take 10 days, 2 weeks, whatever he wants to take, when he decides, okay, I'm ready to finish, that's the day that he needs a second teglachas. B'yom shigalech yitbal v'yar shemshay. On the day of his second teglachas, he's toivel, and the sun has to go down on him. L'mocha maybe karbanos of the next morning, tomorrow, he brings his karbanos. V'metzora aymed b'shani kanar. For this last step, for bringing his karbanos, you got to stand in one of the sha'arim of the azara called shani kanar. Ki lo niskadesh b'kedush azara v'yachal lamed sham. Okay, right. So it doesn't have kedushas azara. He's allowed to stand there. Ki la azara asul likanas l'mechusi kiburim asul likanas l'azara hainu l'machna shchina. Right. He already got a level of tahara that he can come into Yerushalayim. He already got a level of tahara that he can come to the Rabbi, right? When he was in the Lishkas Metzora and there's his Noshim, that's Rabbi. But now to come into the Machna Shechina, that's exactly what he needs his karbanos for. To eat kachim and to walk into Machna Shechina, he's still mechusar kippurim for the completeness of his tahara. V'asham b'tzayir ton tenufa chai emloy gashemen. The asham of the three karbanos, the asham is going to require a tenufa when an animal is still alive, together with a loy gashemen. V'das haram kamper dal aloch beis shakayin ba'atzmer enifu b'loy siyu abaylam. The kohen does it alone. He doesn't need the help of the Metzora. V'ayin sham b'kesef mishnah shemavur b'toisefta negoyim perches aloch atetz. Da kohen meniach yada etachas yad abaylam umenif. It's a two-hand operation. It's a shutfus between the kohen and the Metzora that's seeking Torah. V'ayin sham ha'shetir das Rambam. Why the Rambam doesn't say like this toisefta? Let's say you're not holding the animal and the loy shemen at the same time during the tnufa, during the waving, you're also yotze. Okay, so this is a sugya that's in a couple of places in Shas. It's called, the machlokes is if bia b'miksa shmei bia or lo shmei bia. Bia over here, we're talking about bia to the azara. We know that certain tameim are meshulach from machna shechina. So if they walk in, that's an isakaris. If they bring the whole body in, it's isakaris. What about if parts of their bodies comes in? Their feet go in, their hands go in, their noses go in. We're going to see in a minute. The ears are going to have to go in, possibly. Yeah, but certainly for the smicha on the karbanos, yeah, you can't take the karbanos outside the azara, right? Take it l'smicha shchita. Even karbanos that don't need soften, even karbanos that just require being shachted in the azara, but you got to do smicha in the same location as the shchita. So say upon us, how are you going to pull off this trick? You got to do smicha in the azara. You can't do smicha outside the azara and then bring the animal into the azara, right? So the bailam of these karbanos is the Metzora. He's got to do smicha on the karbanos. How can he do smicha on the karbanos? Yeah, if he can't be in the azara. The answer is he can't be in the azara, but his hands could be. So the Rambam is paskening and the bia b'mixus lo shmei bia. Coming in partially, just coming in with part of your body, that's not called that you came into the machna that you weren't allowed to be in, and that's how the smicha gets done. The rest of his body is still in shani kanar, but his hands are sticking into the azara proper, and that's where he leans his weight on the animals. Shnei kohanim mekabel damai. Two kohanim have to be mekabel the dam of the karbanos. Kohen echad mekabel dam b'chlisharis k'chol hashamis. One kohen, it's the regular din of Kabbalah. Yeah. Parenthetically, shchita, like any other shchita of all karbanos is mutter bezar. You don't need a kohen to do shchita. The din is mekabal ve'elach mitzkuna. The last three avodas amater in the dam, kabbalah, halacha, zrika. For that you need a kosher kohen. Okay, so, but there's two kabbalas that go on by the Hasham Metzora. One kabbalah is the conventional, the generic kabbalah that goes on by all of the karbanos. You have to be mekabel the dam and the klisharis. That dam will later be applied to the mizbeach. It'll be a zrika on the mizbeach. The echad mekabel biyada yemanis uma'ara liyada asmalis. Another amount of the dam he catches directly into his hand without a kli. Catches it in his right hand shifts it over to his left hand. Yeah. V'noisen al ha'oizen v'al b'hainos be'etzboi ha'yamanis. Okay, and then uses his right hand again to dip his finger in the dam, not the dam that was in the kli sharos that's going to end up on the mizbeach. That's separate. Dam that's cupped in his left hand. That's what he uses for applying. Part of the tahara process over here is he has to go on the right hand thumb, the right foot thumb, the big toe on the right foot, and the Chinuch ha'oizen. What's the Chinuch ha'oizen? I don't think the Chinuch ha'oizen is the earlobe. The way the Rambam seems to describe it to me, like the bridge between the upper and lower ear, this area of the ear. That's called the Chinuch ha'oizen. Okay. This is all he's quoting. He's quoting the halachas here from the Rambam, the Minchas Chinuch. I underlined it here. V'im kiba b'yad small apostle. The Rambam paskins that if the kohen is makabel directly with the yad smile, the dam that's required for hazayas on the body, on the person of the Metzora, that is going to be possible. We know, generally speaking, that avodah b'smile is possible. If you hold the kli sharos with your left hand, if you maza dam that has to go on the mizbeach with your left hand, avodah has to be biyamin. Right? Here the Rambam says the Kabbalah, the initial Kabbalah for the dam that goes into the hand of the kohen cannot be directly into the smile. It's got to be a starter step. It's got to be makabel with your right hand, and then shift it to your left hand, and then you can be taival etzbecha hayamanis into it. Well, the case of Mishra Sham Tama, our Rambam b'shem Ari Kurkis, the mavur b'tesefta negoyim pe'ates alacha beis, the tzarech l'kal b'yad small, v'mshin apostle faket. In Chazal and Tesefta of Negoyim, there's no description of this stutter step, of the two-step process. First into the Yad Yamin, and then into the Yad Small. It goes directly from the Geshachta in the throat of the Behema, directly into the small. Faket, if you Meshana, if you would do this thing of first being Makabal with Yamin, and then putting into the small, that would possible. Ein Sham Shenichlik is it. Okay, it's a kasha on the Rambam, it's a Shur Rambam. I'm having the Shkanteretz right now. Yeah, first, the sequences, the order is of these two kabbals. Okay, now you've got two dams. What do you do with the two dams? So what went into the kli sharos, you do the avodas halacha and the avodas hazrika on the mizbeach. The Metzora machtas roshai. The Metzora sticks his head into the azara now. Another example of bia b'miktzas, right? Because he's still a mechutz kapara. He's not finished yet. He doesn't have complete tahara yet. Nevertheless, he can stick his head in. V'noisem min adam shebekapa al tenuch eisen hayamanis. V'achas ha'machnas yadei hayamanis. Yeah, he withdraws his head and now he sticks it in his hand. V'akayin nois al bayin yadei hayamanis. V'achas ha'machnas ragla hayamanis v'nois ha'akayin al bayin. Right? The ear bridge and the two thumbs, the finger thumb and the toe thumb or the big toe, whatever you want to call it. And each time it's a different bia b'miktzas. That's how the Rambam describes the Torah and the Metzora. Now, we know what happens with, he said that there's two Kabbalas and there's two Damim. After the Kohen who did the Zrika with the Kli Sharos, what does he do with the Dam that's left over in the Kli Sharos? Shari Adam, he said in Mishnayos in the morning, Shari Adam, Hayashayfach, Hayasayid. Yeah. You pour it on the Yisod on the foundation of the Mizbeach. That's what you do with the leftovers. Now, you've got a full cupful meaning kaf yadeh, full of dam. All right? Even if you lost something, even the Rambam said it, that you didn't collect it directly into your left hand from the throat of the Geshachta and Behema, you caught it in your right hand first, and then you poured that into your left hand. Still, there's 3 little dabs of dam, even if you taivel your finger every time. What do you do with the Shari Adam that's in your cupped hand?
No protocol.
What? No.
Protocol.
Okay. Any svaras? It's talking no protocol. We're going to see, but this is before the era of blood-borne diseases. We're dealing in the era of lashon hara-borne diseases, not blood-borne diseases. Okay, so he says takalera yisi. It's interessant to Shiloh what you do with it. What do you do with the leftover dam that's still in the palm of your hand? Imton shvicha al yisayid adraimi, k'may shirayim shebekli k'kol ha'karbanis, or yesh davka shirayim mizbeach nishbachan al yisayid. K'ri alfina mikroi tzvachim, pergez mekaymen, and now we learn the Mishnayos, but there are Gemaras and Mesachos Zvachim that go through the Benani Mili. How do you know that Shiori Adam Ha'Shayfach El Yisayid Rami, or El Yisayid Maravi, right? Al V'Shirayim and Yad, Efshir Nishbachan L'Amar Shabazara. The Amar Shabazara was, for want of a better word, a drainage ditch, a sewage ditch, a drainage ditch. Yeah. Right now I didn't find it. Okay. Later Dairis did find it. If you look at Ice Vav on the bottom, they said there's a Tesefta in the Goyim, Perak Tes Halacha Gimel, that you do spill those leftovers into the Amma Shebazar. So again, to get an exact lumdish together of what's going on over here, Kaparis, Taharis, what's totally and what, right? But I mean, even as Havamin, the Havamin of the Minchas Chinuch, to me is a little bit mechudishdik that he would have a Havamin, that's something that you apply to the body of a human being. That to me, it's obviously a Torah process. It's like the Azara Mechatas and the Paraduma. That those Shirayim would have Epis Shayach to the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach is for Karbanis. The Mizbeach is a Makkah for Karbanis. It's a din carbon. The Metzora becomes like a Mizbeach, and we're applying dam to him. That's part of the Ritzu of the carbon. I mean, let me rephrase the question this way, okay? There are parts of an Osham that are Nechel Kahanim. Okay, to me, what the litmus test for this should be, logically, parts of an Osham that are Nechel Kahanim. Yeah? If the Zrikas Hadam, and he said already that the Kayan holding the Klisharos does his Avodah first. He does his Halacha, he does his Zrika on the Mizbeach first. If the Zrika went Kahaigan, yeah, they did the right number of Zrikas, although I think in most Kabbalahs we say even one tip of dam is matter. But you did the right Zrika and with the right Machshavas, there was no Machshavas Pigel, and it was on the right spot of the Mizbeach. Yeah? If that was done, could the Shiraim of the Osham be eaten? Barakahanim or not? You say, well, 1 second, hold on. We got to see if the dam was applied correctly to the body of the Metzora. If it's not applied correctly to the body of the Metzora, so we don't have Avodas. I mean, would anyone cholam that you could be mafagel with the dam that's in the palm of your hand? That if when you're applying the dam to the body of the Kayan, who's applying the dam to the body of the Metzora, is thinking, I'm going to eat this Osham 3 days from now. Pigel. It's not Avodas Hamata. It's part of the Torah process. Why in the world should that Shirayim go on the Mizbeach? I mean, go on the side of the Mizbeach. I don't quite grasp the Havamin of the Minchas Chinuch. What?
What do they do with Stam Carbon? Let's say they put the parts in the Mizbeach, now they're coming to skin the animal, whatever.
Right.
What happened to all the blood that fell out of the animal then? Not the
First of all, you have to know that like much of contemporary Judaism, a lot of our kashrus code today is midrabanan. This that they salt and soak and soak, salt and soak again, yeah. That all of that dam, according to most poskim, is only nisa darbanan. The only dam that's really awesome in Atayra, that's a karas in Atayra, yeah, is the dam atamtzikol. It's what comes out of the carotid arteries when you're shechting an animal, whether it's kachim or whether it's chulin. Okay. Yeah, that's only dam that's awesome in their eyes. Yeah. So you want to know what they did? In other words, if the klisharos was overflowing, I don't know how big the klisharos were. Maybe the klisharos were designed to be big enough to catch all the dam. That's the shanasham tluya of the animal. What?
You didn't stand there until you got 6-10 quarts of blood. They collected whatever they collected, and then there was, I'm sure there's blood left.
I don't think when you slash the throat of a behemoth for shechita, 10 quarts come out.
No.
I mean, there is a lot of blood coming out of capillaries and blood vessels when you do the soaking and salting process.
So that's what I'm asking. When after they makabel the blood,
right?
What do they do with the cow?
I think whatever is done to be machshir an animal, it's chun for achila.
The blood just dripped into a drain.
again, you want to know Gnai when the din d'Rabbanan of soaking and salting and soaking again that we do today, when that kicked in, if that was going on in the times of the Mishkan, or that was going on
I was wondering if there was a protocol, a kedusha protocol for the blood that came out later.
No.
Oh, that's fine.
No, it was. I mean, like all kachim, you had to be careful that it shouldn't become tummy. But the dam removal for a carbon, once you were zayrik the zrikas and gave all the matanas and you got rid of the shari adam that was in the klisharos, was no different than chulin. It was exactly the same thing as chulin. Okay. All right, we're running out of time. I want to skip a little bit more. Okay, take a look at Ice Hay. Very interesting. The Mavur b'Mishnah Regayim, this is on Kufnan Test, so turn the page over. Ice Hay. The Mavur b'Mishnah Regayim, Perek Dalad Mishnah Test, Upaska Ram Zal Kan, Perek Halacha Aleph, Dim Ein Loi Eisen, Oi Boyhen, Ein Loi Tahara Elamis. Okay, you know, a Kayan who's a Balmum can't do the Avodah. What about a Metzora who's a Balmum? Does he have an Eitzah? If he's missing, it says in the Torah, the prescription of the Torah, his Tahara process involves matanis of dam and matanis of shemen on part of his ear, part of his right thumb, and part of his right big toe. Right? Let's say he's missing one of those ivarim. Doesn't have a right ear, doesn't have a right thumb, or he doesn't have, parenthetically, from what I've heard, maybe they're not so historically or scientifically accurate, understand that in honest to goodness tzaras, mamish stick of flesh a person can lose. I mean, I don't know if you can mamish lose a whole limb, but you can get deep pock marks. You can lose, large amounts of tissue. So the idea that punkt the Chinuch eisen should be missing, it might have been a function of tzaras. But we don't need that. Stop, the guy had an industrial accident. He lost a finger. He lost the finger he needs. He lost the right thumb. Yeah? They're not needed, to get along in life. Maybe he's a lefty, but he needs it for his tahara. So the Rambam paskins, such a guy has no tahara elamis. If you're missing one of the ivarim that required applications of dam and shemen, tough luck on you. You're not going to have a tahara elamis. At least not this tahara to come back into the machna shechina and to eat kachim. Upaska Ramzal, Kan, Perakei Aloch Aleph, Dim Ein Loi Eisen, Oy Bayen, Ein Loi Tahara Elamis. If you're missing an ear, or if you're missing either your big thumb or your right thumb or your right big toe, you have no Tahara. But that's Harash Rav, okay, there's a Mefarsha on the Mishnayos in the Goyim. The Dafkim Nikta'a La'achash Nizkak LaTahara. That this is only true, there is such a Mishnah, but the Mishnah is limited. B'medvar Mamurim, if the thumb or the toe or the ear were cut off when he already needed tahara. Avokaidim shenizkak, let's say before the first naga ever appeared on the guy's body, when the guy was completely tahar. Yeah? It was a guy who lost his right thumb in an industrial accident. Then he has a takana. I'm besanhan perek nigma din mamheim beis gabi nikto yad ha'edim. The Leslie Meikar Shapadami. Okay, there's a din by the Haruge Bezin. The pasuk in the Torah says, Yad Eidim Tiyaba Barishayna, V'yakol Am B'achrayna. Right, it wasn't like in Gaisha court systems when they had capital punishment that they had executioners. Yeah, over here the Eidim, there's a mitzvah in the Torah that the Eidim who were made, that their Eidus, their testimony got this guy the death penalty. They're the ones who have to execute the death penalty, right? Was tut man mit an aid? Generally, an aid needs a good pair of eyes and a good mouth. He's got to see the crime he's testifying to, the affair he's testifying to. He has to be able to say it over and bezin properly. Hent taf min hashabin. But if you're talking about haruge bezdin, it says yad ha'edim tiyah b'rishayna. Was tut man with an aid who has no yadayim. So it says over here, there, the Leslie Meikar Shabbat. If from the get-go, if when they said the Eidus, I'm not sure what Meikar means, if Meikar means at the time of Re'iyas Eidus, or at the time of Haggadah Eidus, but whatever case may be, whatever Meikar means, if they don't have hands, Meikara, then it's not Ma'akiv in Bezin executing the accused. The Dasa Taisa Sham, but they're Masla. And the Dafke im Loyhaya Loy Oizen Oibayim Bishash and Iska Glutuma Yesh Latara. If at the time that he was Niska Glutuma, he didn't have an Oizen or he didn't have a thumb, then he has Tyra. Avalim Hayaloi. Oz Vachas Akarv Shaniska Latara Nikta Ein Latara. Varamba maybe Mishlasei Katsurasa Valachilik. The Ram just brings the Mishnah and he doesn't get into these Chalukim before he was Niskak Latara, after he was Niskak Latara. Vaytais Yonta Perik Yudalim Mesachta Anal Herach Liyash Das Rambam. Mufalfal Gamken B'das Rambam Nozer Perches Lochahei Vayn Lachzir Lachzir Sham Barichas.
What about the carbon itself? Does he have to bring? Or let's say he doesn't have an ear.
Yeah.
Does he have to bring a carbon, and even though he can't, or that even that's the end? Is that in the act of the carbon?
Very interesting question. In other words, if you hold that even before he was Niskak Latahara, if he lost his thumb or his ear, yeah, so he knows. So if you go like the Rambam, that there's no chiluk, right, and you're not going to be Niskak Latahara, does he have to go through the bother of expense of bringing his karbonis? I'm not going to be able to eat kachim anyway. Very interesting question. Let me see what the Rambam says it himself.
It's actually, if the din is that he doesn't have to bring, then you can't even call him a chesed kapara. It's not chesed, he doesn't have to bring.
He just kapasik v'tani. He doesn't say what he has to do. He just says, Ein loy bayin yad yamanis, a bayin regel yamanis, or shein oizen yamanis. It's interesting that it says oizen yamanis, doesn't say Chinuch oizen yamanis, because Chinuch is also a specific part of the year. Yeah? The Rambam gets very, very specific. I'll read you the halach from the beginning. Ezel Chinuch oizen, ze geder hamtzai, the middle bridge. Nasan al tzidei habayin is kosher. And then he moves on straight to the behind us. He doesn't talk about, being on target on the ear. But at any rate, okay, let's say he lost the whole ear. And like buying yad yamanis, like buying regel yamanis, or shain like oizen yamanis, and like tahara lamas. That doesn't say if he's still mechuyev to bring his karbonis. So you're telling me, is it an opportunistic mitzvah? Shad is, it's a mitzvah kiyumis. You want to become tar. You want to be able to eat kachim. See, it's not really an option to say stay tameh. Let's say he does have a thumb and an ear and a big toe, right? Guys say, something. I'm not interested in the expense. I'm a miser. I'm not a doll that I could get off with 2 little birds. I'm going to have to bring 3 big behemoths. I'm happy I can walk into Yerushalayim. There's enough tower for me. I don't need to go to the Mach anymore. What happens to the mitzvahs of Aliyah L'Regel? What happens to the mitzvahs of Achilles Karb Pesach? Right? If you're not Betumah or B'derech Rechaika and you don't eat the Karb Pesach, it's Esekaris. You're going to say a guy who opted out, who decided, well, I don't want to go through the expense that's involved in becoming Torah. He's an honest, he's not chayav kares. Let's say a guy like that is a chayav kares, right? So in general, to say that it's an optional thing, that staying in a state of partial tumah is an option. But over here, he is an honest. He doesn't have the physical requirements to ever achieve the hara. Is there a separate mitzvah? It's not a chiv, a flicht on you, as beyond. Like the Lashon of Chinuch when he started, yeah, b'yom she'yisrapen, yeah, mechol. I don't know, very interesting question.
Remember, it's probably not part of the right. Putting the blood on this bite name on this is there's nothing to do with the carbon. So So maybe Korban does have to bring.
I would think so. Okay.